Hello, everyone. It's your boy Adrian here. In whatever way you can, let's make sure that we're supporting USARC. They're fighting to keep our reptile keeping rights. It's getting really crazy out here with all the laws passing and whitelists being approved. Make sure that you're becoming a USARC member if you can, and if not, support USARC awareness on your platforms. Thank you, and we're stronger together, guys. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back underneath the palm trees. Talk about reptiles and spit facts from BP to GTP, emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the crease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Reptiles. Talk about reptiles. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to West Coast Wednesdays, episode 5 with your boy Adrian. We out here on the West Coast vibing, man. You already know. If you're looking for a podcast, a reptile-related podcast, giving trustworthy advice, being transparent from a new keeper's perspective, getting back into the hobby, getting back into the game, especially with snakes, whether it be ball pythons, emerald tree boas, green tree pythons, dumerals boas. We got you covered over here on the West Coast, man. Getting in all those cool species, getting some diversity up there. You can learn from my experiences on the way. Be sure to share this content, like, comment, and subscribe. Set your notifications. Man, I really appreciate anyone that shares this content. I had a ball python clutch that was due pretty soon. Unfortunately, it hasn't been doing that well in the incubator. I pretty much equate that to maybe not enough ventilation in the egg box. So next time, I don't think I'm going to be using press and seal. Seemed like a couple eggs crashed. I might have a couple eggs still viable. I had 4 eggs total in the clutch. I had 2 go bad already, so I got 2 left, and we'll see if those make it. To give you guys some updates on those, but definitely make sure you're having some ventilation in the egg box. It was way too condensated in the egg box, and that's what I'm chalking it up to right now. But it was my first clutch, so learning a lot. Leopard geckos are doing good hatching. We got a good guest on today, Josh Dunlap from Scales, Fins, and Feathers, man. 16, man. He's got a lot of experience with a diverse collection. I want to do a deep. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. I'm going to bring Josh on the stage. Hey, how's it going, Josh?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. Good to have you on West Coast Wednesdays, bro. West Coast podcast. Another West Coast dude himself, man. Josh is over here in SoCal. I've seen you at a bunch of reptile super shows, if not every reptile super show I've been to. I saw you at the Reptile Breeder Show, hosted by KG and D.
Yeah, great people.
How's it going so far, man? It's pretty hot up there in the valley, huh?
Yeah. Summer's kicking in here for sure. We got our first dose of really hot weather for the year over the last few days. It's been kind of mixed up and down. You get hot for a couple days, cool down for a couple days, but summer's coming for sure.
Yeah. I'm enjoying those cool days for sure. It is pretty mixed out here in SoCal right now. So hey, Josh, what's up with those enclosures behind you? What do you got in those right now? Those are pretty cool.
This behind me is tree monitors, green tree monitors.
Oh, all right.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, I got a pair in here. It's like a 8x5x4. And I have it divided into 3 sections. with
Okay.
kind of doors in between the three, so I can split them up, or with nest box
Mm,
on the end,
got it.
a
Got it.
heated nest box on this side, so I can easily separate them
Yeah, with like
when
portholes. You
need
have like
be.
portholes or something. Like
They're actually like about 12-inch by 14-inch doors on hinges that just
okay.
fold down, and then with a lock on the top, so I can just fold up the door and lock it.
Okay.
So when typically the doors are open, and it's just they can fly across, and it's one big enclosure. But sometimes if to give them a little break, or when the female's getting ready to lay, or if we're recovering or whatever, I'll just separate her over on this end with the lay boxes.
All right. Have you gotten
Yeah, I've
any
had these
production
guys
from
for
those?
what's that?
How long have you had them?
I've had these guys for I think about 6 years. Gotten a few clutches from I held back one of them I have over here. Um, yeah, we work monitors are one of my favorite. We work with the green tree monitors. We work with the Ackies, of course. I have a pair of blackheads, the Tristis I'm raising up. We have some white throats I'm raising up. We have Kimberly Rock monitors, which we've produced some clutches
Yeah.
from. So yeah, I always love the monitors. They're the creme de la creme,
Yeah. That's
in
how
my
I
opinion.
hobby. I started with the lizard and frog route, legged species, and then
Hmm.
when I jumped back into it, I got a ball python, and then I found out, I was never a snake guy, and once I got my first ball python, I was hooked, and man, I fell in love with the snakes, and definitely a whole nother avenue. They're
Yeah,
when you're a lizard and frog guy, and then you get a snake, you really appreciate the snakes because of how you know much feasible is to maintain them. Lizards and frogs, they're everyday animals. So shout out to you,
mhm.
Josh, for choosing a pretty diverse and more intermediate species to keep, man. So that's good to hear. You got some clutches from those green tree monitors. Happy for you, man. And
Yeah,
I didn't really
thank
know
you.
that.
They're not easy. They
Nah,
test you,
no,
that's
no.
for sure.
Yeah. How long do those eggs incubate?
Those are about 150 days, 160 days.
Yeah, that's
Um,
gnarly.
so
Yeah.
yeah, they take a little bit of patience. They're not quite as bad as the beaded lizards. The beaded lizards will incubate those for like 7 months.
Yeah.
A lot
I've
can go
bred
wrong with those.
I've bred panther chameleons myself, so I know about incubation periods. I incubated my chameleon eggs for a whole year in my closet. 365 days they hatched. Yeah. So I hear
Wow,
you, man.
that's
Yeah, man. So
crazy.
that's yeah, I have a
That's
appreciation, man, for these animals. They're quite extraordinary. So,
Yeah, you hear ball python people complaining about waiting
oh
55
yeah.
days,
I was
60
oh
days. I
man,
laugh.
it's a walk in the park, dude.
That
Yep.
happens in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun, man. It was fun working with different species and
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been a keeper my whole life, and I'm way more a keeper before I was ever a breeder, and so I love these animals. I couldn't stick with any one species. I
yeah.
like the diversity, playing with different stuff. So, like almost every year, I try to challenge myself with one new species.
For
And
sure.
it's kind of like not I don't advise anyone to go hog wild and start out with 25 species or anything like
Uh,
that. But yeah, just growing into it, getting a process down for each species you're working,
yeah.
before going into another one, really it makes it feasible
Yeah. Yeah,
without
that's a good segue.
burning yourself out.
That's a good segue, man. I know what dedication keeping monitors takes, keeping lizards takes. So I was very careful not to jump too far into it. I definitely didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. So that's when I was at a Reptile Super Show, I believe 2 years ago at a January show, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew that one of our buddies, Diego Cruz Family Constrictors, was vending alongside MJ at the Trap
Uh-huh.
Exotics booth at the Pomona show, and
Yeah.
that's when I picked up my pair of red Ackie monitors, captive born and bred,
Nice.
and I was you at the time the tree monitors were really popping off, and I wanted a tree monitor, and then I heard that the homie was vending with some Ackies, and then I did a little research and found out that Ackies are more of a beginner monitor to keep. I've never kept
Yeah.
a monitor before, so that's the route I chose, and I'm really
Good move.
happy I
Good
did.
move.
Yeah, and so let's get into it, Josh. So with the Ackies, man, when did you how did you start? Maybe just give us your background into when you got started with the Ackies.
The Ackies, I believe I got my first trio. I picked them all up as babies. I got two females from Reptile Revolt in Massachusetts. I spent my time shopping around and really handpicking some really nice bright red ones with I like the lot of the pattern. And then I got a male from High Desert Herps, I believe it was. God, this was got to be 10 years ago. I think it would be around 2015, 2016 when I first started messing with the Ackies. And, they grew up, took them up, I think it was about a year and a half before, I got them up to breeding size. And I still have I still have that same trio. I'm currently working with 3 unrelated groups of Ackies, with 2 males. I have 1 male. I switch back and forth between 2 of the groups, and they they all kind of have their own individual breeding patterns. Some you'll get 2 or 3 clutches. It's typically 2 or 3 clutches a year from them. I say average 12 to 17 eggs per clutch. Your first couple clutches, you might get 8, 10. Some of them, it's weird. I have one girl. Most of my girls, they breed. The timing is critical on breeding. They'll breed all the time, but the female has to be cycling for it to take. And so, like, I'll have 2 of my girls. They will cycle. You breed them, and they will lay their eggs like in 30, 35 days, pretty much like clockwork. I have another big girl that she won't, like, sometimes it'll be 45 days, sometimes it'll be like 55, 60 days, and then she'll lay her eggs. It's weird. She's always been that way. She seems to hold them longer, but she lays big 15, 17 egg clutches of huge
Wow.
eggs. And they'll usually all be good, maybe 1 or 2 slugs in there. Like the first egg or the last egg will maybe a slug. But so she doesn't lay, she only lays 1, maybe 2 clutches a year, but they're always huge and huge eggs. So it's not like an exact science, I don't think, on their. I think it might be part of like where they are in the cycle when they get knocked up, but so it's not always exactly 30 days from breeding to laying, but that's a pretty good guideline.
Yeah.
And I'll rotate them out. Like I rotate them so they're all on different cycles. All my females, so I only have 1 going at a time typically. That's grab it at a time, and
Yeah,
so that way
that's
I
quite a
try to, where.
that's quite a big clutch size. I didn't realize Ackies laid such large clutches.
Yeah, you're older. Yeah, you're older girls. Once they get about 3 years old, and I have some pretty good size ones. Like one of my males, it's got to be 24, 25 inches. One of the biggest Ackies I've ever seen. So it's funny. I just got a message earlier today from someone who got one of my Ackies at Pomona, like 2 or 3 years ago, and it just laid its first clutch, and it was like 16 eggs. And he was showing the picture. He's like, she dwarfs the male, which the males are typically bigger. And he was like, is this normal for your line of Ackies? Because this thing is huge. And her first clutch of eggs was, I think it was 15 or 16 eggs or something. Only half of them were fertile, which is fairly common for a first clutch. But yeah, it's funny. I just literally just got that message today. He's like, God, this girl is huge. Is this normal for your line of Ackies?
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, they're a
you
lot of
sold him.
fun. Huh?
You sold him a pair of Ackies, like a 1.1.
No, just he got his female from me. I'm not sure where he got his male, but he just
Yeah.
sent me a message. He hit me up a little while ago about breeding boxes and stuff like that and whatnot, and showed pictures of them locked and whatnot. I'm not sure where he got his male, but like my female, literally, I had a picture of them locked up, and typically the male is much bigger than the female, and this thing is like, this female dwarfs the male. And so he was just asking, like, is this normal for this girl to be this big and to get this big of a clutch size? So
I know,
it definitely the line makes a difference, I believe.
Yeah. I know that sexing them is kind of hard to do when they're young. Do you have any tips on sexing them when they're young? Do
Yeah,
you handle them?
absolutely. You can flashlight them when they're real small. They have to get a few months on them first, but you can't let them get to like maybe 5 or 6 months old. By then their tail's too thick and you can't flashlight them. It's not 100% guaranteed way, but you can see hemipenes on a male through with a strong flashlight underneath their tail. But really, for me, the best way of sexing them is behavior. If you just sit and watch them for any amount of time, it becomes pretty obvious, even pretty much out of the egg, the males are going to be much less shy, much more food aggressive. They're going to be the first ones to come climb on your hand. I never go in and reach in and chase them around to try and capture them or anything. I just go in, I put my hand flat in the enclosure, and they're curious. They're going to come up. They're going to check your fingers out, smell you, climb on. They're naturally very, very curious. And so that's the way I use to socialize them. But it'll always be the males that are first to come. And then you start adding like a little bit of food on your hand. Like I raise quail as well, hence the feathers. But one of their crack is scrambled quail eggs. They literally will go nuts for it. And so I'll put a little bit of that on the palm of my hand, and tempt them on to come and walk into my hand, and just really get them socialized, and doing that from the very beginning. It makes a huge difference in the pet you get later on. Ackies are pretty forgiving, but like with the beta lizards and the other monitors, the tree monitors and stuff, they remember everything. So you don't want to break that trust. Establishing this trust and not breaking it is huge with those. Ackies are pretty forgiving as far as that goes, but it'll be the males that'll always come out first. They'll be the more aggressive feeders. They'll be the first ones to come out on your hand, to be the more adventurous ones, less shy, and they will typically grow faster. So like out of a clutch, you pick out the 3 or 4 biggest ones. They're almost always going to be the males.
Yeah.
Not always, but the majority of the time. But if you just sit and watch the behavior, the females will sit back. They're just more timid. They're going to do. The males will act and then think later. The females will do a little bit of thinking and be a little more cautious before they act. So if you just spend very much time with them, with the babies, you can kind of pick them out, in my opinion. Also, as they get older, adults are pretty easy to tell just by the head size, the head and neck. Just look at the head and neck. The males have bigger heads, longer. It's one of those things. It's almost, if you line up pictures side by side, it becomes clear. It becomes fairly obvious. But it's one of those things you just have to kind of develop an eye for. You can almost like look at them, and like I had a friend. He's like, God, I've had these things for a year and no breeding. I don't know what's going on. They were sold to him as a pair. you just look at them and go, oh, you got 2 females, you know, and I can't even actually like, oh, well, this is why. But after looking at them, you just develop an eye
Yeah.
for it, you know,
Yeah, I know
and it
exactly
was
what you mean.
yeah. It's like it's hard to
Like
pinpoint and actually, you know,
my
go, well, see
female
its ear and its
yeah,
nose, the distance, you know.
yeah.
It's not a mathematical equation, but it's just something you develop an eye for.
Mhm.
Like my
Yeah.
buddy who's worked with Clubridge forever, it amazed me. I had a clutch of milk snakes, and he went through and sexed every one of them, like 12 of them, just by looking at them without popping them. And he was right on every, just for having so
Wow.
much experience with, you know, doing colubras. He says like, the males just have a little bit more of a shiny sheen to them. Their skin color is a little bit more vibrant. There's just a little look to them. And yeah, that blew me away.
That's nuts,
So
bro.
it's one of those things you just kind of develop an eye for. Um,
Yeah.
but with monitors, the majority of almost all the monitors, the males will be bigger as adults, you know, and some of them, a lot of the species, like nearly twice the size of the females, and you
Yeah.
know, the head size is fairly, fairly obvious once they get close to maturity. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
pretty
so
sure
yeah,
I have a pair.
huh?
I'm pretty sure that I have a pair,
Uh-huh.
and I could tell like the female, like the male just looks more like pit bull head, kind of brute looking, and the female just looks like kind of prettier. She
Yeah,
just looks like more
exactly.
feminine. Like
Yeah,
her face
exactly.
looks like all
That's a
narrow and
great way to
pretty
describe it.
and proportionate. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like she just looks like pretty. And she has a
Mm-hmm.
different like just glisten in her eye. And the male is just like a velociraptor, like, what's up, homie? What you looking at, dog? Like, like kind of thing. But the female's like more like inquisitive
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I'm pretty
Cautious.
sure that I have a pair because they've been copulating like they were copulating nonstop. They've seemed to have given each other a break right
Mm-hmm.
now, and maybe that'll lead to something hopefully. And yeah, but Diego picked them out for me at the reptile show. He had like about 3 or 4 maybe left.
Mm-hmm.
He was selling them pretty good. He was
Yeah,
having
they
good success.
always
And
go
he
really
picked out,
well.
I was just like, oh man, can you pick me a pair? He's like, dude, it's really hard to tell at this size. But I think he nailed it, man. And they, like I said, they've been copulating, and I mean, I don't think 2 boys would copulate with each other or 2 girls. I obviously have 1 male for sure, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have another. Like I said, I have a female. I mean, the head size is pretty. They're still like relatively small, to be honest. Like they're 2 years old, I think. They're not like that giant Ackie size yet. You see that like
Mm-hmm.
giant, and I really try to feed them, consistently. I give them eggs, like you said. I'll give them scrambled eggs here and there,
Mm-hmm.
dusted with calcium. I was
Mm-hmm.
heavy on crickets as they were growing up. I was heavy on crickets. I'm trying to raise some
Mm-hmm.
dubias up for them. Do you feed dubias
Yeah.
to your Ackies?
I do. I try to. I'm very self-sufficient here. We have red runners, dubias, hissers, quail, rodents. I get an order of crickets every week. I get 2,000 crickets shipped every week. From Bob, I get them from 818. But besides that, we pretty much raise all our own food here.
Yeah. I've tried to offer like pinkies to the Ackies and they just don't take them.
That's good. You don't want to really. That's one of the biggest problems I see with the Ackies, and that's I I will rarely take in an adult or buy an adult because so many people feed their Ackies too many rodents, and it leads to fatty liver disease and shortens their lifespan.
Mm.
And I'd say a large portion of the Ackies I see out there are obese and have been fed too many rodents, and it's fairly obvious.
Mm.
So I don't recommend feeding. I don't get my males any mice, any rodents at all. The females, when I'm trying to get them to cycle, or if they're recovering, I'll throw them a little fuzzy here and there. Try not to do pinkies because there's just not much to them, you know.
Yeah,
Try to
yeah.
give something with a little bit that's got a little bit of bone, a little bit of fur. But it's very rare that I
They're
feed
just so small,
any
like
of the
that's the
dwarf
only thing
monitors,
that would fit.
huh?
They're so small, like that would be like the only thing that would fit like a fuzzy or like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like a small fuzzy, or not a day
Uh-huh.
old pink, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, don't I don't recommend, even for any of the dwarf monitors. They're insectivores. That's what they're meant for. That or lizard eaters. Like the Kimberleys, they're specialized in eating lizards and geckos and stuff like that. So yeah, it's the rodents they're not built for eating rodents.
For sure.
So
For
they
sure,
they know,
man.
maybe they know better.
Yeah. So what size? Like, so you got some good size Ackies over there. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I keep them in
Sure.
it's a 6x3x2. And I cover all the walls, like even on this one too. All the walls with some kind of textured background, so they can, it just gives you so much more square footage. I cut like PVC, like basically like shelves, and screwed them to
Okay.
the back wall like every few inches apart, so they have like these little rock crevices to kind of wedge themselves into and get comfortable. I put some PVC tubes in there that are hopefully just fat enough for the female can get in there, where she can get in there and escape the male if he's harassing her too much. Um,
Hmm.
so they have a little bit of a where they can separate from each other, and
Yeah.
like some, so the females run the show as far as breeding with monitors. They make all the decisions for the most part, and
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that my male was
they
harassing
pretty
a
much
lot.
control. Yeah, there will be times where if she's like getting ready to cycle, uh, they'll start really harassing them. And yeah, so I like to give them a spot, like a PVC tube, small PVC tube, like a 1 inch or so diameter PVC tube works really good for that. Just where they can wedge themselves in there, and the male can't come in behind them and
Yeah.
harass them at all. Um, but yeah, what I do is Gorilla Glue, the old school Gorilla Glue. I just spread that stuff out on my background, and you spray it with water, get a light spray, and it'll start texturing and bubbling. And then I take sand and just sprinkle it over that as it's drying, and you get a bitch and really durable background that lasts like years and years of these monitors climbing, running all over the sides, so they can use every inch of the enclosure, and it keeps their nails trimmed down, and you can literally make one of those backgrounds with the glue in a couple hours, as opposed to
Yeah.
like carving foam and silicone and that stuff that takes a
Yeah.
week to do. I did one of those. I'm like, hell no, there's got to be a better way. And but that's the Gorilla Glue, and I use it's called Jurassic sand. You order it online. It's a super, super fine sand, and it comes in these really bitchin' like red colors from like the Utah mountains or whatever. And so it looks really nice,
Yeah.
and it's super durable, and yeah, they love it. That's
Yeah.
it's been a
Yeah. That's a great
godsend for
idea.
making backgrounds for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I
A
know
little
exactly what you
shortcut there
mean.
for people.
That Gorilla Glue, I used to use that a lot, and like, you know, engineered flooring and stuff, because that glue, it has reach. Once you like hit it with some water, it'll start to kind of expand that Gorilla
Yeah.
Glue. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
know exactly
textures
what you mean.
itself, so you get all like a natural bubbly texture. And
Yeah.
every show, and people, oh, how do you do your backgrounds? Like, and it's super effective, super quick. They look great, and they last forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little piece of info.
True. And so
But
your husbandry. So how deep is your substrate? Your nest boxes. I was thinking of going more shallow with my substrate, so they want to use the nest box more. You know,
yep.
using what is your hotspot at, and you know all that stuff,
Yeah,
man. Just the ins and
yeah,
outs.
we keep them. I keep them. I have my hot room in the garage. It's like 3/4 of my garage. I just built a room in there. The day they sent me home from work for COVID, man, I went straight to Home Depot and started building that room. Uh, so that room, it stays at ambient temperature of about 78, 80. It'll drop a little bit at night. Um, so I don't have any, I don't put any night heat on them at all. So it'll drop down into the 70s at night. I have two basking spots on each end, both about 125, 130. And then I have a UVB that goes, almost like it's like 4 foot, runs down the middle, a good portion of the length of the enclosure. And on one side, the shelf, these shelves I built into the cage and just screwed them into this. I build all my own enclosures, PVC. And so I put shelves and stuff in there for them.
Where do you order the
and
PVC
so I have
from?
one shelf that's,
Where do you order the PVC from?
There is a sign company in North Hollywood here. God, it starts with the G. Gabrielle's, I think it is. Gabrielle's. It's a sign company,
Okay.
but they'll sell the sheets of PVC there.
Oh wow! How much is a sheet?
I think. Well, the last I bought for a 4x8 sheet of 1/2 inch was like 170, I think. It goes up and down. During COVID, they were up to like 300 a sheet. And it came back down to about, I think, 150, 170, somewhere in there for a sheet. So it's more expensive way to build an enclosure, but you only have to build it once. I don't care how much you seal your wood when you build wood enclosures. I grew up, my dad had a cabinet shop growing up, so I grew up working the cabinet shop. So most of my life, my enclosures were wood, and so I'm lucky to have those skills to build this stuff. But in the PVC, you can work just like wood. But I don't care how much you seal that wood or what you do to it. When you're having monitor lizards or anything like that, with that kind of temperature, that kind of humidity, that kind of moisture, that kind of misting, it's going to rot. You're going to get a good cage. You'll maybe get 10 years out of, and they weigh a ton. The PVC, it's lighter. It literally lasts forever. It cleans easy, so it holds the heat and the humidity. So I have almost no glass or wood enclosures anymore. I've slowly over the years, turned everything to PVC.
Yeah, I only have one. I got 2 glass enclosures left. Yeah.
It takes so much more to heat them. So I'll build shelves on one side. The shelf is up higher, closer to light, so they can get a little closer, a little hotter, and on one side. And then on the other side, they have basically it's a built-in nest box. It's not the shoebox size Tupperwares, but the next size up that are, I don't know, they're about 2 feet by 1 foot by about 10 inches tall, 11 inches tall, that next size shoebox. That's I basically put one of those in there underneath the light on the left, and I built a box around it, PVC box covered with that background and everything. So it just has about a 2-inch hole in the top, and so that's where the nest box is. And it's the way it's positioned under the light. I don't have to have that one heated like on my tree monitor one. The cage is too tall, and so I have to have a heat mat on the bottom of the nest box to keep it. You want your nest box to be about as close to 85 degrees as you can get. That's where they want to lay their eggs. And so the way I have the Ackies positioned under the nest box underneath one of the heating lights, that I don't have to add any additional heat onto their nest box. I use a mixture of play sand and potting soil for their nest box. And the key with them is you can't have it too wet. The Ackie eggs are a lot more forgiving than like the Kimberly eggs. It has to be perfect. Like it has to be damp, but if those eggs get wet at all, it's over. It's done. So you want it on the dry side as compared to how I have most of my other nest boxes. On the dry side, you want it to where you can stick your fingers in there and it'll hold a tunnel, and just wet enough to hold a tunnel is what you're going for.
Okay.
As far as consistency of your and exactly, you said I used to have a deep substrate over my enclosure. and then you could never find. It was a nightmare finding the eggs. She would lay in different spots all the time. It would be inconsistent. Sometimes they would be scattered. Um, so I have maybe an inch and a half of substrate throughout the enclosure, and then the nest box. And now
Yeah,
they always only lay in the nest box.
yeah, that's my thing right now. I got like 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches of substrate. I'm like, oh man, they're just gonna lay in the substrate, bro. So I'm gonna remove some substrate soon for sure.
Uh-huh.
And what substrate are you using? You're running the same kind that's in the nest box,
Yep,
or
yep. Sand. I'll have it on the outside. The one I have not in the nest box, I'll have some more cocoa mixed in. I use sand and play soil, but it just helps hold a little bit more humidity. Having some cocoa mixed into the sand. So
yeah?
I don't do that in the nest box just because I don't like the chunks in there. But I'll
Oh,
mix
okay.
cocoa into the substrate on the outside, and I'll also throw a leaf litter in there. Not a whole ton, but I'll throw some leaf litter in there, and it helps hold humidity too.
Yeah,
Every I
for sure.
every time I change the water, I have it's like a probably 8 by 8 by 3 or 4 inch deep water bowl, which you almost never see them go in, but you do see. I hear people say the Ackies don't drink. They definitely do. I've seen them all drink at some point or another.
Yeah.
Um, Especially the young ones. I think that's the quickest way to kill them is they dehydrate really quick. That's those high temperatures and that small size, they
Yeah,
dehydrate really quickly. So I spray my babies a lot. I'll spray them almost daily,
for
just
sure.
to make sure. Especially with the Kimberleys. That's super important with the Kimberleys because those things are like paper thin and they
Yeah.
dry out and die really easy as babies.
Yeah, I've tried to keep my Ackies pretty humid. That's why we got the deep substrate, and it's not just sand; it's eco earth, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe some moss. Keep a humid hide. I definitely do
Mm-hmm.
not want my Ackies to dry out. I've even heard of soaking them. I soak them from time to time, and I do keep a nice water bowl. I see them; they'll just go and take a bath in the water bowl. I don't see them really drink like that much. Maybe when they were younger, I did, but not now.
Yeah.
I don't really see them drink that much, to be honest. I'll spray them and I'll see them licking their, licking around with
Uh-huh.
their tongue, flicking their tongue while I'm spraying. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
they're a hardy species, man. They're a hardy species for sure. They could
Definitely.
definitely get away with some neglect. I would definitely recommend starting out with some Ackies. They're definitely a tough species, man. And yeah, keeping them hydrated and humid, I think that's pretty important. Um, I've kept them pretty hydrated and humid that I can say.
Yeah,
And
that's key. And like you said, having a humid spot is in, especially for the young ones and the babies, I'll give them just, a little Tupperware full of wet sphagnum moss all the time. And usually they'll sleep in there. But
yeah,
one of the biggest problems you have with baby Ackies is stuck shed and they lose their toes and the tips of their tails and
for
things like
sure.
that. And having that humid box pretty much has eliminated any of those issues. And you'll see them; they'll pile up and sleep in there, and so that it gives them just enough moisture to where that the skin doesn't stick to their toes and or their tails. And I haven't
Yeah,
had any of those issues in years since keeping a humid hide for them.
yeah,
And
man.
another experiment I did last summer I did it with two separate clutches. Is I keep a fair amount of animals outside. I have lacerdas outside, jeweled lacerdas, and bearded dragons outside, and Italian wall lizards outside year round. But so I have these little made out of PVC, and I put them on rollers. They're basically just little tubs, like 4 feet by 2 feet by a foot and a half, 2 feet tall. With some screen lids, and so I for a lot of these species, I'll put them out during the day and then bring them in at night. And so I'll just roll these little tubs out of the room and put them out on the patio during the day. So I took at two different times last year. I took a clutch of Ackies and I split them in half, and I left half of them in my room as I normally would, And then half of them I put on this routine where I would take them outside, on if it was a warm enough day, and just leave them outside all day. And the ones outside grew at nearly twice the rate of the ones that I kept inside.
Wow. Yeah. That
With
reminds
the
me of.
same, they, yeah, it was the same feeding pattern. I didn't feed them any differently. The only real difference was natural sun, really. And they
Yeah.
just thrived outside. So, I did that again with another clutch, had pretty much the same results. And I've just been doing more and more stuff outside, and that you can see things thrive. I have the black agamas outside, and they've just colored up so much better since being outside. We're starting to set up some blue tongue stuff for outside.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fun.
You got to really be careful with that outside stuff. I kept somehow my chameleon baby clutch got put outside, and they all cooked in the sun. So you got to definitely keep some shade. You got to keep some like somewhere where they can get out of the sun.
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
You can't just
that's
keep
key.
them
You can't
trapped.
put them just in a spot. Yeah,
No,
where
especially
they're fully
baby
exposed.
reptiles. Yeah, yeah. Chameleons are a lot more sensitive. It wasn't it was something that happened accidentally and out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
I lost the whole clutch of chameleon babies. It was sad. So yeah, definitely be careful keeping reptiles outside. Make sure they can get away from the sunlight and they're properly hydrated. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I go out there and I'll just take the hose and spray them down, and you'll see the bearded dragons. It's funny, they get in their water bowl and splash around, and they love it when you spray them down on a hot day. But yeah, they got, just like any other reptile enclosure, they have to be able to regulate their temperature. You can't just put them out in the sun. Well, except for maybe the agamas and these wall lizards, they don't seem to care at all. I don't think you can overheat. They don't seem to be able to overheat, but for the most part, yeah, they have to be able to regulate their temperature, just like any other enclosure. But
yeah, well said.
That natural
said,
sun, there's something about it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I love the natural sunlight from my animals. That is for sure. And so you're going back to your egg boxes and your females laying eggs and all that good juicy stuff we'd like to talk about. So when you do get the eggs, real quick jumping ahead a little bit, when you do get the eggs, you artificially incubate the eggs?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen I typically separate my males, but there's been times where they've laid in there when the males were in there. And I haven't had any males eat any of the eggs. Which I'm not sure if it's real common with Ackies. I know it's pretty common with the tree monitors and many of the other monitors, but I have yet to see an Ackie go after the female eggs. But if I know when I know she's getting close, I'll separate them and
that's
I pull
a good
the
point.
eggs as soon as I tell you come in, huh?
That's a good point. I haven't heard of possible cannibalism of eggs with the Ackies. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Josh.
Yeah, which kind of surprises me because they'll eat anything and they love eggs. But I've had several, especially early on instances where female laid sooner than I thought, or I didn't even know she was going to lay, or I was gone, or whatever. And the males have, even with eggs that were spread out, usually like scattered infertile eggs are usually fair game, and I've yet to see a male Ackie eat those. But anyways, I pull them anyways, just because I have almost, I'd say a 90+% success rate of incubating the Ackies in the incubator. So I don't want to risk leaving them in a nest box, even though they probably would do fine. The way the nest box is, it's basically the box with only a small hole on the top, and then it's inside of another box, that's built into my enclosure. So the nest box doesn't really dry out. It stays like it's not very often I have to go in and re-moisturize the soil. So the eggs probably, if I left them, they probably would do well and hatch in there, but I've never tried it. I incubate all my monitor eggs at 85.5. I just have a wine cooler. I put heat tape in. I put a fan at the bottom. I have two of those shoebox Tupperwares full of water on the bottom, and the fan blowing right down on the water, so it's like humidifying the egg box or the whole incubator itself, so I don't have to have the egg box wet. So like literally, I incubate them again, those Tupperware shoe boxes I use for everything. I'll put about an inch of perlite on the bottom and get it real wet. And then I'll put about 2.5 inches of completely dry perlite on top of that. And then I set the eggs on top of there. So the eggs are completely dry. But there's humidity in the egg box itself, but the majority of the humidity is actually in the incubator. The whole incubator is real humidified, and that seems to work really
run
well.
a wet chamber. I'm sorry. You run a wet chamber in your incubator?
Well, I just have 2 Tupperwares of water sitting on the bottom of the incubator,
for sure.
And with a fan, and I have the fan blowing. Not most people you see, they have the fan on the top of the incubator. I have the fan on the bottom, right above the water, blowing down into the water. So it's kind of like spreading the humidity out, I think, more.
Yeah. And you have like air holes in your egg box, or
Yeah, I put 2 small holes in the egg box on the lid of the egg box, and I don't use any kind of press and seal or anything like that, So they get a little bit of air exchange. And I also I'm not in there every day checking them, but I will, once every couple weeks I'll open them up, and especially towards the end. They typically, for me, hatch at about 115 days, 110 to 115 days. And so the last month, I'll really watch them a lot closer. I'll go in there, a couple times a week and wipe away. They'll start sweating more, so you'll get more humidity in the box towards the end. Mm. And that's where a lot goes wrong, I think, with monitors, especially with the tree monitors and the Kimberleys and some of the more sensitive eggs. The Ackie eggs are they're not quite ball python eggs, but they're pretty bulletproof. But with the tree monitors and the Kimberleys, if one drop of water falls from the lid of that box onto one of the eggs, it's done pretty much. They'll go bad fast.
Yeah, I think you heard. You heard in my intro that like I had my first ball python clutch and it pretty much crashed, and I chalked it up to the press and seal. Honestly, I think press and seal is like the worst thing you could do, like to your eggs. Like, I don't know why anyone would recommend press and seal. Like, that makes no
ball
sense.
Python people are the only ones I've ever seen that do that, and I don't know why.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Nobody, please, nobody ever use press and seal. Never use press and seal on any egg incubation, bro. Like, come on. You want air holes, good ventilation, especially if you're running a wet chamber. Like, it's and even if you weren't, just add some more water. If the water, make sure now I have my egg box on a tilt, so the water is just dripping down. Because I had the press and seal, it just sags, and the water was constantly. The 2 eggs in the middle died immediately because of all the condensation.
Right in the middle.
Dude. And then now all the other eggs are dying. And there goes, a whole 2, so never use press and seal on any egg box. Thank you.
There's so many things like that in the reptile hobby that have just been passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth, or these stupid Facebook groups, or, that are just either completely wrong or
they want to see you fail. Honestly, they just want to set you up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's sabotage,
intentionally.
Bro.
Yeah, maybe intentionally sabotage. I know that's the way. It used to be that way. A lot of the old school guys were that way. They didn't want anyone to have success, so they would definitely mislead you. But I don't know how much of this is misinformation that's been just passed down. You could take a ball python egg and put it in the glove box of your car and hatch it, So I think that's why they've gotten away with that.
Apparently not,
for so long. but you do that with sensitive eggs, you're never gonna get any of them to hatch.
No. Yeah. Yeah, man. So your females, you said that they cycle. Like my leopard geckos, I'll have a female. She lays eggs like 2 eggs a month. How
Mm-hmm.
frequently are the Ackies laying eggs?
My ones that cycle a lot will be about every 3 months, 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when they're gravid, you'll obviously see them like, ovulating and being gravid, and you'll definitely see them swell up like maybe a female leopard gecko would. I see your pictures of your ovulations and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
they become insatiable. They they can't get enough food. Especially when they're first starting to cycle. And with the monitors, what you'll see, and where I think a lot of people go wrong, is at the beginning of their cycle, they'll go crazy. They're eating, and then you'll see a lot of breeding, but it's like the beginning of their cycle, so nothing happens, and then they'll kind of go off of food a little bit, just a little bit, not completely, but or sometimes they'll shut down for a couple days, and then you'll see the breeding stop, and then people will separate them at that point, and that's not and she was never gravid. Then they go through this little it seems like while they're cycling, they go through a little like pre-cycle where they kind of shut down. You'll see them swell up. They'll be breeding, then they'll stop breeding. They'll kind of shut down on food a little bit or ease up, and then after that they'll go through that for a few days, and then she'll go into her real cycle and then she'll see her food start ramping up again. Then it'll be about a week apart, and then the breeding will start up again. And that's where the action happens. That's where the deed gets done. And I did that. I literally went through. I learned this from the tree monitors, but I see the same thing with the Ackies. Is if you separate them too soon, because the very first clutch I had with the tree monitors, my male ate the eggs, and the female whooped his ass. She damn near killed him. I thought he was so bad, I almost didn't take him to the vet. I thought for sure he was dead. He was like, both the eyes were closed, like she bit up his face so much, eyes were all infected and swollen up. He looked like the worst banana ball python you ever seen, like with just like it looked like he had nerve damage or something. It was bad. And it literally took me about a year to get him back to health. And I'm not sure his vision got all the way back on one side. So anyways, after that, I was paranoid. So as soon as I saw them breeding, her go off of food, I would separate them. And I literally screwed myself for like 2 years doing that. And it's like it's their cycle is pretty much like 2 cycles. They'll cycle up, then they'll ramp down, and then they ramp back up that second time. That's when they go into the estruvation, or I forget what it's called. But then that's when you have success. That's when the breeding takes, is when she has to be fully cycled and ready. And that's where I think most people make mistakes with the monitors, is separating them after that first part of the cycle, and not waiting for that second part of the cycle for them to really ramp up. And then the Ackies, it's real obvious. Some of the other monitors, it's a lot harder to tell. But when the last 2 weeks or so before a female lays, she looks like a balloon. She gets really big, and it becomes, it's again one of those things with, after you go through a few cycles, it just becomes obvious to the eye.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, then you separate the male out. It's like, this one's for sure. She's gravid for sure this time. So I'll pull him out and let her do her thing in peace. And they will go off of food before they lay, but sometimes not very much. It might only be a day or two. Like the tree monitor stuff, they'll go off of food for maybe a week, 5 days before they lay, 3 days at least. The Ackie might only go off of food for a day or two before they lay. But you can,
All right.
it's real obvious when they lay. You're like, okay, she looks deflated.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to see. It's like, oh wow, I've had them before where I didn't even think it was really gravid, I didn't think she was that far along, especially with the younger ones. And then you'll come in like, oh wow, you can tell she laid. I didn't even think she was close to laying. I never even pulled the male. There may be 8, 10 eggs in there, half of them bad or whatever. But like even if you're not sure she's fully gravid, after they lay, it's very obvious. You can tell, like, okay, now I got to go digging.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so I'll dig them up. I'll flashlight them, put the little Cheerio side up. If you can see it, sometimes in the monitors, it might take a couple of days before you actually see the little ring, little Cheerio. You might not see them if she just laid them. It doesn't usually show. It might take a day or two for those to show. And then put the Cheerio side up, set them in there, and let them go. But yeah,
Yeah.
85 and a half, 85, about 110, 115 days.
All
And
right.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's as far as Ackies are a perfect introduction to the monitor world because
Yeah.
especially the males, it's like you want everyone wants a monitor, wants a Komodo dragon or this big badass lizard, but not everybody can give up a room in their house, or
Yeah.
do what it takes to feed one of these things or
Yeah,
house them,
man.
or the cleaning on a big monitor is
Oh man.
massive. It's a
Yeah.
serious job. So with these Ackies, you get like that little male monitor at 12 inches long. He thinks he's a Komodo dragon.
Yeah.
So you get
Yeah.
that the full monitor experience, all the fun, the attitude, but all in a handleable, manageable size in an animal that can't hurt you and can live in basically a bearded dragon enclosure.
For
Um,
sure. All
so yeah,
great
they
points,
are
Josh. Yeah.
definitely, they're very hardy, very forgiving for mistakes. So I recommend them all the time as if someone who's interested in getting into the monitor world. But people want to buy Savannahs or Niles because they're cheap, but they have no idea what they're getting into.
Yeah.
You get an Ackie, that's a real good introduction into the monitor world.
Yeah, they're pretty skittish and flighty. Mine like get out accidentally a couple times, but it's pretty cute. They'll just like run up, like they'll climb up something, and then you just grab them instead of like going underneath something. They'll like go up. They'll go up, and then you just
Uh-huh.
grab them as they go up. Another cool thing about them, they don't drop their tails, or I haven't heard of them. They don't really
No,
drop their tail, so you could kind of like grab them by the tail. Like not, I don't
no.
recommend that, but like
Mhm.
in worst case scenario, um, yeah, every time they've gotten out, I was
Yeah,
able
what
to
I
just easily catch them. They're really cool lizards, man. Really fun.
Yeah, and they're so curious. I've had them get out of my room in there a few times, and they're so curious. They can't. They give themselves up all the time.
Yeah,
You'll like always sitting there. I have my cages stacked, and I have like maybe an inch in between the shelves. Between the enclosures, and always just look. In those cracks, and when you're in there doing stuff, especially if you bring in like some scrambled eggs or some, they smell
yeah,
some food in there, you'll see their heads pop out of the cracks. Like they can't stay hidden. They're too
yeah,
curious. You're in there messing around. They have to check you out, and,
yeah.
and see what's going on. So you'll just see their heads pop out from between the enclosures. Like, okay, I know where you are.
Yeah, man. I feel like that was a good deep dive into the Ackies, bro. Definitely learned a lot. Really appreciate that information you sharing with us, Josh. I've got some more
Oh yeah,
topics we
no
could go
problem,
over
no
here,
problem, man.
bro. Maybe let's take a quick break right here. I'll run a couple of the ads, and then we'll jump back into it, man. Hello, everyone. It's your boy Adrian here. In whatever way you can, let's make sure that we're supporting USARC. They're fighting to keep our reptile keeping rights. It's getting really crazy out here with all the laws passing and white lists being approved. Make sure that you're becoming a USARC member if you can, and if not, support USARC awareness on your platforms. Thank you, and we're stronger together, guys. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back underneath the palm trees. Talk about reptiles and spit facts. From BP to GTP, Emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the crease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Reptiles. Talk about reptiles. Style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. All right, man. All right. We back. So I guess we'll get into the diversity topic, Josh. I know you keep a pretty diverse collection, bro. So how many different species you got right now that you're working with?
Ooh, gosh, I should know that. It'd have to be in the 20s.
Yeah, I got
Probably.
10. I have 10 different species of reptiles, 9 with breeding pairs.
Right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, that's I've been a keeper my whole life. I grew up in the mountains. I'd come home with, rattlesnakes in my pocket and shit, drove my mom nuts. And my dad was always able to build me cages. So I've been a keeper my whole life. And then once my daughter showed an interest and started, really getting into the reptiles as well, that gave me free reign. We went off, so we started getting all kinds of random stuff. And then next thing you know, your food bill's, $250 a week. And it's like, God, these things got to get a job. So we had all these random animals. So yeah, we just started pairing up. It's like, okay, we got a male dragon, let's get a female, started and just really enjoyed the breeding experience, just going through the whole process of, breeding, getting eggs and hatching them. And then finding homes for them, turned out to be pretty easy. And so, yeah, me and my daughter just started all the different random species we had. We just started, breeding them. And so, yeah, same thing. I don't think we have anything that we don't breed or isn't intended to be breeding anymore. But yeah, we have from things from, like little morning geckos and yellowhead geckos and little tiny things, micro geckos. We do a lot of crested geckos, a lot of gargoyle geckos, all up to the monitors and kind of a little bit of everything in between. My daughter, she plays with some of the spiders, tarantulas, and the scorpions are pretty cool, millipedes, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we have a very diverse collection.
How old's
The
your
beaded
daughter?
lizards are one of my favorites. I really love the beaded lizards.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
She's 21 now.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So we've been at this for a while. We've been,
Yeah.
I think we started breeding and doing shows and stuff. I think it was around 2015 when we started doing shows.
All right. You have any snakes? Any species of snakes at all?
Yeah, I have one rack of ball pythons. It's one of those things I avoided forever. I work with way more lizards than snakes. Just for me, there's more personality, a little more character, a little more going on behind the eyes with the lizards.
Yeah.
More interactive. But I've always loved snakes. So I put off doing ball pythons for a long time, but finally it was like, I want to make a blue eye Lucy. I just wanted to make a blue eye Lucy. So, I got some hobbies, and then, yeah, it just gets addicting when you get a bunch of eggs and everything comes out different, and then figuring out the genetics and finding surprises you had in there. Like I discovered Krypton. I kept getting these crazy weird snakes pop out here and there, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I had this butter Inchi girl. Turns out she's cryptic. So I got, so you stumble
Yeah.
on to some like really odd things. So yeah, that's grown into just like a little fun project. So I have one rack of ball pythons. We have a couple, a trio of Puebloan milk snakes that were just, that was a pet that we just ended up really nice one. And so we ended up with a pair, and then I held back one of the females. So we have a trio of those. We produce Puebloan milk snakes every year. I have a trio of black king snakes, the Mexican
All right.
blacks.
Yeah.
We have a pair of red tail boas that we've had for a long time that for some
Nice.
reason have never produced. I don't really know why.
Yeah.
But they're kind of more my daughter's pets. But it's a male and a female, and they're big now.
Oh,
So as far as
fun.
snakes,
They're
I
nice.
think that's it. What's that?
Boas are fun. They're really nice. I mean, the ones that I have are,
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, they're and just beautiful, and
Yeah.
it's good to have for like for the garbage disposal of the
Garbage
big rats.
disposal.
The
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
oversized breeder rats,
For sure.
the adult quail. They can take
For
care of
sure.
any of those things.
Yeah.
But they're just they're kind of more pets. Someday if they breed, it'd be cool, but
Yeah.
we're not going crazy. But I think that's it for snake species. Um,
What is the
yeah, and then we
favorite
have
species that you're working with? Like your favorite species, bro? The one that you walk in your room and you check on them first thing, bro. Those are green trees
the
behind
green
you?
tree monitors.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
I hear
those are
you.
my babies. But the
Yeah.
male Oscar, he literally he'll come when you call him. He's puppy dog pain. I
Yeah.
think going through that whole process of having to heal him, we had to give him medication like 3 times a day, 5 times a day at one point, eye drops and squirting it down his throat and everything. And even my daughter had to do those when I was at work. And she was like, she even
W
said the
chills.
same thing as I was thinking is like, he can tell you're trying to help him. He's literally cooperating, and so going through that whole process with him has made him like, I wish they go to sleep early, like around 3. They're already in bed, but he'll like come out and just hang out. He's the biggest, bluest, greenest, like gorgeous. Like he's literally like if it was a dog show, he would be a 10. He's just a perfect specimen and huge. And just the mellows can be and so smart. But yeah, those are be my favorite would be the tree monitors. I'd say second is probably the beaded lizards, the Mexican beaded lizards. I love those things. I basically call them a slow monitor. Everything about them is like a monitor. The way you feed them, the way you breed them, the way the care, everything. It's just in slow motion. But those are
Yeah.
really cool. Probably then my next favorite thing would be the emerald tree skinks. Those are they are the most underrated reptile in the hobby. I'll scream that to my grave. Um, Besides a bearded dragon, they are the most friendly, fearless, curious reptiles I've ever seen. Even the little tiny babies out of the egg they just have no fear. They jump right on your hand, check you out. You can see the way they're looking at you. They're like a little monitor lizard, very intelligent,
Yeah.
gorgeous green as anything, and just super friendly. They do good in groups. Those are those tree skinks are one of that would definitely be on the top of my list
Yeah.
as well.
Want to give a huge shout out to the homie You Chillin', bro. He's tapping in. He's live streaming on Kick. Shout out to the homie You Chillin', Kick
Very
streaming.
cool.
He's
Very
tapping
cool.
in.
Appreciate
So
that.
yeah, those Italian wall lizards you got are really awesome too, man. I've never even heard of those until you posted those. And you need to post the green tree monitors on your social media some more, dude. I didn't really even know that you kept those, bro. I know you have a lot of
Yeah,
different stuff.
yeah, I need work. My social media, I'm bad about it. I'm trying to get better. I'm an old school guy, and this was always more of a hobby than a job. And so I always kind of just treated it that way, kind of low profile. And so social media is definitely something I need to get better on. And yeah, I don't know why I don't feature them more for some reason. I'm not sure. I guess when I have babies available, then I do more.
Yeah.
It's
Try to
probably
keep it
more
low
the case,
key.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I should. But
Sure.
he's so like when you get the camera out too. He puts his face right in there. He's a ham, man.
Yeah, man.
He's
So
good for it for sure. For
if
sure.
you
But
were to
yeah,
get
we've
any
been
new stuff, bro, have you thought about getting any new species? Or what's the newest species you've got into?
the newest is the wall lizards. The Italian wall lizards are the newest species I've gotten into. I bought a group of those last summer, and they're basically a small Lacerda, and just they're on all the time, super active, like just fun to watch. Again, an intelligent lizard. You can see the way they look at you. They're very fast, but they're very curious. You put your hand in, they'll come up and climb on and stuff, and they're just gorgeous. And they will eat anything, literally anything. I haven't found anything they won't eat. They're omnivores, vegetables, fruits, gecko diet, even those dried package bugs that nothing will ever
Really?
eat.
Wow.
They'll eat those things. They literally eat anything. They can handle any kind of temperature. It was at 120 out, and they're just basking and loving it. And then it can be 30, and you go and you dig up the dirt, and there'll be like little blocks that are all just stiff in the dirt. And then you just hold them in your hand, and they come alive and pop out. Like these things, I got 50 of them and haven't had any of them die. So I built a really nice outdoor enclosure for those, and you can lose so much time just sitting watching them. It's
Yeah.
just
Let me
a
while
very
you're just
active,
describing
small, hardy. Huh?
going to while you're describing these species, I'm going to add it to the stage. I'm going to remove this and then add this to the stage, and then we can do a review right here and check out your Instagram, bro. So you gotten into that's that isn't a that's not a lychee, is it? That's a I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a lychee. Yeah, the one
Oh,
on the
really?
right,
Oh,
that's a
wow.
lychee. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It doesn't even. It looks pretty small, huh? Is that's a younger lychee or?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that one's like less than a year.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you see I have
Egg is
like
okay.
some Ackie eggs. Yeah, those were just maybe a week or two ago. Those were laid not too long
Nice.
ago.
Congrats, bro.
Yeah, thank
Congrats,
you.
man.
Yeah, that's the wall lizards there.
That's so awesome, dude.
Yeah,
So
they're
are
like
those full size?
no, those are like half size for the most part. They get about 9 to 11 inches or so. And the males get a little bigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're in the Lacerda family.
Yeah, those are
But like
beautiful,
it's
man.
really interesting. Like they love the water, and you put a water dish in there, and they'll take turns drinking. They'll all like kind of get around it, and one will drink, then he's done, then the other one will drink, and they're really, really interesting. And you'll see the red lily whites. That's one of my projects I've been working on. I think at the top in the middle there is one. Um, that's one of
This
the
is the
projects I'm really proud of. I've been working on the lily
is
white,
it
my reds for a long time. That's
is
one
it
thing I'm more known for in the crested geckos is my reds.
okay, the crescent geckos, okay.
Yeah, that top, yeah, there. And so I already had a really nice, several groups of really nice reds. And so then the lily whites, typically the one thing missing in the lily whites is structure. I won't breed a gecko without a huge fat head. So I really
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
on getting structure and empty back into my lily whites. and then combine those with the reds has literally been like a 10-year project. I've probably got more time and energy and concentration put into that red lily white project than anything I've ever bred. But I'm super, super proud of those.
Man, these are dope. These are really red, man. These are
Yeah. That's
super red.
probably what I'm known most for in the reptiles is my red cresty geckos, and now the red lily whites are kind of taking focus.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of geckos. I'd say that geckos are probably my bread and butter, crested geckos, especially at the shows. I make some really nice enclosure kits I put a lot of time into, where they're fully equipped, set up for people, so people can come buy a gecko, get the enclosure ready just the way I keep them at home. Food, it's already decorated, has the water bowls, food bowls, and so people go home and put it on their desk and have success. So that's been a real successful thing we've done at the shows. That really is kind of our bread and butter. I've teamed up with Josh at South Bay Reptiles we did a few shows last year. I've known him for 10 plus years. But we teamed up and did a show just on accident last year, and we had a great time and it went really well. So we've been doing every show this year. We've been vending together and getting, big booths, and between my variety and his variety, we have just a kick-ass booth at these shows this year.
For sure.
So and we're having a lot of fun doing it. I bring my daughter, something I get to do with my daughter, on the weekends, and yeah, it's been a really good time, and we help push each other, motivate each other, and so it's been a really good partnership, and the customers really, they come to our booth and you can spend a good part of your day just at our booth between the amount of species we have between us.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you guys you have very great branding. This is the picture of you I used in the thumbnail. You have very nice displays on your table, very nice branding. Very professional, Josh. I really like your setup, bro. True professional, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
A true West Coast
We put
pioneer, bro.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I forgot we have is tricolor hognose. Those are really cool. I don't know how I forgot about those. They're a pain in the ass, but they're really cool.
Okay, did I
The
skim through
tricolor
those?
hognose snakes. There's
Okay,
one on the left right there.
Oh no.
No, rosy
This is
boa. My buddy produces those. I have a friend here. He's a real old school guy, and yeah, right on the bottom left is one of the tricolor hogs. If you go down a little bit more, right there, yeah, it looks like a king snake. The red, black, and white one. But yeah, I have a friend who produces a lot of colubres, quality rosy boas and king snakes, Arizona mountain kings, gray banded kings. So those are things I have a lot of times at my on my booth at the shows too, because I pretty much I sell all the stuff he produces. That's blue tongue skinks.
Yeah. It's a really nice tree monitor. Looks really healthy, bro. Nice and healthy tree monitor.
Yeah, that's
right
the
there.
that's one of the ones I held back. That's one we produced here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right here at the Santa
But yeah,
Monica
somewhere
Pier.
there should have I have quite a few videos of or skinks. Yeah, I do a lot of fishing. I did tournament bass fishing for 20 years. Calico
I saw
bass,
that.
saltwater.
Yeah. Oh wow, yeah, I
Yeah.
love calico bass. Yeah, I have a kayak. I go, kayak fishing offshore. Try to get some calicos
Oh, right
myself.
on.
Right here's Palos Verde. Oh no.
Oh yeah, cool. That's
Baja, California.
Baja. That's a blue fedora, and
Okay,
down below
that's the blowhole.
Ensenada.
Yeah, the blowhole.
Yeah.
I went there.
My
Yeah, my brother just got
girlfriend
back from
has.
Cabo.
Oh, nice! I love Baja.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's building like 5 apartments near there down at Estero Beach, down at the south end of Ensenada.
Wow.
So we go down there a lot.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I had a uncle. He used to live at K55. It's kind of like a
Oh yeah,
retirement
surf spot.
kind of. Yeah, yeah. It's gnarly down there. Pretty gnarly. Yeah. Okay.
My
Yeah, man.
brother and I had a fishing boat at the Hotel Coral in Ensenada for close to 15 years, through the 90s and in the beginning of the 2000s. And so we were down there, between May and October, we were down there 2 or 3 weekends a month. And usually those weekends would be like 4 or 5 days. Yeah, I love Baja. We do a lot of halibut fishing at Catalina. Halibut are biting right now, really
Yeah.
good. Um, this next full moon, sea bass should be popping. They popped off
All
the
right.
last full moon.
All right. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've tapped in there. Yeah, man. Shout out to I see Josh in the comments, bro. South Bay Reptiles, bro. Thank you for shouting us out. Everything you do.
It's my
All
boy.
the
You're my boy,
homies.
Blue. Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
be up in San Francisco this weekend. Cal Palace. We got a show up there Saturday, Sunday. Um, Josh and I have an island, so we'll have 8 tables of goodness up there. All kinds of cool shit. He has really high end boas. Like he has a lot
Yeah.
more lychees, chihuahuas, like really, really nice panther chameleons. We both have a good assortments of cresties and
Yeah, man.
colubrids. He has a lot of colubrids. So yeah, we call our booths complement each other really well.
Yeah, man. And he's just a cool dude, just to chill and
He
kick it with,
is.
bro. He's a really cool dude. Uh,
Yeah, we have a lot of
Always
fun
been a
on doing
solid
these
man,
trips.
dude. Yeah, always a positive guy, bro. I know he's a
Hmm.
hard worker, man, and he's been through a
Yeah.
lot, dude. So shout out to the homie Josh, man. Really
Yeah,
relatable out
we're
here.
competitive with each other too, so it's good. We're pushing each other to do
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
do better every time. Improve the booth, and improve our displays. Bring more high end. Bring in the more high end stuff. So it's a good. It's that iron
yeah, man.
sharpens iron.
So you got any imports that you're working with? Like, did you import those Italian wall lizards, or what's your quarantine, or just any like process that you do with imports and stuff like that? I don't know.
Yeah, the imports, we totally quarantine them. We have a whole room that we just for anything that comes in new that isn't from either me or Bob or Evan. My tight group. Um, it goes into especially if it's a wild caught, which we don't do too much wild caught stuff. I'll bring in a few odd things like that you don't see, that you can only get wild caught, like the Schneider skinks. You can, some the red eye tree frogs. Those are farmed. So we'll bring in a few things like that. But yeah, and all those things they go in one room, and I use bins, just either bins with hot pads and lights depending on the species, or I have these the acrylic containers I use that we sell with the gecko cages. I use those for quarantine. And so we'll typically do 3 months on anything in quarantine.
Yeah, yeah, man.
And then
For sure,
before
man.
before we'll bring it to a show or anything. Um,
Yeah,
we'll buy it. I'll buy. Sometimes we'll buy clutches off of friends. We'll buy whole clutches if they hatch out something cool. A batch of king snakes or a batch of rosy boas or something like that. Something like that. Those we'll bring in. We'll hold for a couple feedings. Before they break, and then bring them to a show if we know the person who bred them and we know they're captive bred.
yeah.
But yeah, those
Josh
wall
said he's
lizards,
gonna
I've had
teach you
them.
how to catch a fish one day.
Oh,
He's gonna
now
teach you
now I got to put
I
my
know.
boots on because it's getting
Yeah,
deep in here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know.
He knows how to get my goat. I saw
Yeah,
there was a clip I saw one time of Miguel uh, always evolving, of him doing a rant on one of his videos about I'm the best fisherman in the reptile industry. I'll fish anyone. Dude, that pissed me off. And
Oh shit.
I almost did like a rebuttal video if I had my shit together on YouTube, because that fired me up. I mean, I know Miguel, he's a cool guy, but I'll outfish that. I'll outfish him any day of the
Yeah.
week, any species, any spot.
He thinks he's hot
You
shit
can
because he
name
went
it.
on some boat in Cabo or some shit. Shout out to Miguel, bro. We love
Yeah,
him.
yeah. No, we go find our own fish. We run our own boats. We're not getting on charters. We're not getting on
Yeah.
cattle boats. We run our own boats. We find our own fish. I've
Yeah.
been doing this my whole life, fresh and saltwater.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm here to say I'm the best fisherman in the reptile industry, and
Yeah.
challenge me. I'll meet you there.
My grandpa, he was a fisherman. He caught albacore tuna for like, Wilmington out of Starkist tuna. My great uncle
Uh-huh.
Warren Beetle, they would catch, you could fish, but they knew where the fish were, bro. The albacore, they would go load up like 10-ton or some shit and bring it back. I don't, like
Oh yeah, at
three.
Albacore, you're going 100
Yeah.
miles offshore. You better have it together. You
Yeah.
better know where you're going, because you can miss very easily.
Yeah, bro.
And you
So
got to know,
yeah.
yeah, everything's seasonal, depending on your location. And every season's a little different. Water temperatures. Yeah, you gotta. There's a lot of variables. It all sounds easy and it looks easy online. You're looking at all these pictures of everyone holding up their fish and stuff. Till you get out there by yourself, it's a big ocean, and most of it's
So
empty.
collection diversity, man, that's a good segue to shows, bro. You feel like because you and Josh have a lot of diversity, it catches a lot more eyes. It like you go to shows, you see table after table, ball pythons,
Yep.
crested geckos, leopard
Mm-hmm.
geckos,
Mm-hmm.
and then your table will draw some more attention. You have your nice setups, you have your nice branding. So that segues us into some shows, man. Like when did you started vending shows in 2015? How did that go? Like your first shows? When did you start getting success? Let us know, bro.
Yeah, I was lucky, because going with Bob, I was able to, he'd already been doing it for a long time. Bob Gunther, 818 Reptiles. He's a good friend of mine. He literally is a neighbor. And our daughters went to preschool together, so I've known him forever. Softball, all that. And he was one of the reasons why I held off on breeding ball pythons for so long. Is like, why would I even try and compete with this guy? And so I like literally stayed out of ball pythons, because I'm like, there was just so much out there. But anyways, he'd been doing the super shows. I think that's pretty much it. He'd do like the local shows around here. And so he let me get a table from him. I think it was around 2015 or so. Just, it was actually, I think there was like 4 of us local breeders. So we got an end cap and we just each had one table. That's what it was. Of American ball pythons, from Silmar, and Royal
Yeah.
Serpents, Denny, and me and Bob. And so we had an end cap and we just each had our own table. And so I kind of got to learn the ropes from him, and he already had a big following. So it kind of, I got a little cheat code there coming in. And, it's not like I was new to the hobby. I've been attending the shows my whole life and whatnot. So it went pretty well. I've actually never had a show where we lost money. And I totally attribute that to, 1, the diversity of species, and 2, covering all the price ranges. You can't just go there with, everything $1,000 on your table. Having, have geckos typically from $50, or some other, like even the wall lizards stuff. We only sell them for like, $35 or something. So having not only the variety, but also covering all the price points. Every show is different. Every show has
Yeah.
its own kind of local economy. Some shows you're going to sell a lot of high end stuff. Some shows you're going to sell a lot of low end stuff, no high end stuff, somewhere a mix, some in between, so you get a feel for these different shows, but just having that, having covering all your bases, is huge. And being people can tell if you're enjoying there, if you're there for the right reasons. You're letting kids hold a gecko, you're seeing that joy. So many of these people, they want to hold an animal, they want to touch a snake, but they're scared, but letting them do that, letting them break down those fears, and taking the time to coming out from behind your booth and standing next to them and letting them, really introducing them to these animals, and really teaching people about, the real ins and outs, more than what you're going to see on these Facebook groups about these animals. Let them interact and feel how, oh, they're not slimy, they're soft, they're not pokey, it's not scary. Just interacting with the crowd, the people, and being genuine, it makes a huge difference. People read that, people see it. We've all walked around the shows and seen the guy sitting with a bum looking face on his phone, sitting in his chair at the booth. That's that's not what you're there for. I look at this as an opportunity. I worked, all week, all month, all year, whatever the case may be. We used to do 2 shows a year, pretty 3 or 3 shows a year. Then it got to the point where, okay, I'm trying to do 1 a month. Now I'm trying to do 1 every other week is kind of what I'm shooting for. And so when you get there, you got to make the most of those 16 hours you have for that weekend, because you've spent 50 hours preparing or years preparing for being at these shows, for being in this position. You're living your dream. You're doing what that I've dreamed of doing since I was a little kid. So treat the moment with that kind of levity. You don't sit down at the show. I don't even, the chairs are in the way. You want to be there engaging everybody that walks by. You want to be answering every question. You want to be introducing these people to these new animals. And no matter what show it is, a good portion of these people are going to be first timers, and so you can't just, you can't be snobby about it. You gotta start it. You get good at kind of assessing people's skill levels and and figuring out where to pick up the conversation, how deep you need to go, and that's the another good thing about having not only the variety, but having really cool shit, is even at a bad show, the vendors that end up being your customers because you got cool stuff. So we've had shows where it was barely worth doing, but in the 10 years plus of doing this, and now we're going to probably do, I would guess, probably close to 30 shows this year.
Wow.
But I've never had a losing show. And I completely attribute that to the diversity, not only in species, and in price, but putting in the 100% effort during that 8-hour, 10-hour day, whatever it's open,
whenever I think of you, that's just right there, that picture in the thumbnail that we have of you, and that's you, man. You're right there. You're vending, bro. That's every thought I have of you, bro. You're there interacting with the customers, with the public, in educating, and that's you, bro. You're a hard worker, man, and you're a true pioneer out here, bro, on the West Coast. It's not easy what you do, Josh. And so your best shows, what do you think your best shows are, bro? Are they the super shows?
They used to be. The super shows used to be it. They're always good. The January one is for some reason, that one we do way better than we do in the June one.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure why. Anaheim's always been okay, never great. I'm interested to see how it goes with Josh. Now, I'm trying. We have an end cap for Pomona. He couldn't get us an island because I had already reserved the end cap, right after the January show, before Josh and I were really, we've expanded into islands the last few shows. So we're trying to get an island for Anaheim, but we have an end cap for Pomona. So yeah, we're trying to do islands at all the shows now. My favorite shows Sacramento is a really good show.
Yeah.
That's one of the most consistent ones. As far as the most fun, Vegas is the most fun show. I love going to the Vegas show. Utah's been really good to us. The Salt Lake City area has been really good to us.
Okay.
And it's a nice drive. You can bring the trout rods.
Yeah.
So Utah is up there for sure. I mean, the super shows, they're their own entity, but
yeah, there's a lot of looky-loos. There's definitely a lot of looky-loos at the super shows.
There's a lot of looky-loos, and if you don't have a big booth, it's no matter how cool of stuff you have, it's real easy to get overlooked.
Yeah.
I've had that problem. I've had that, when it was just me and my daughter at Anaheim last year, and we had 2 tables in this corner, and you couldn't even get attention, because it's just so big and there's so many big tables, and so that's what Josh and I have been doing too, is making it where you can't ignore us, And so I'm curious to see how that will play out at Pomona, because when with Bob and we had those end caps, those were always typical really good shows, and then he kind of stopped doing them, so me and my daughter would just get like 2 tables and have like a corner, and it would be okay, it's worth doing or whatever, but you get really overlooked at those big shows in a smaller spot. So these medium-sized shows, we're like one, when Josh and I come in, we're one of the biggest presents there, so yeah, it's been showing out really well for us. But Sacramento, I'd say Sacramento is probably the most consistent good show.
Also, like fun, the ball Vegas, python thing, like the ball python effect, it's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, okay, man, there's all these tables with ball pythons, but then it's like some people are like, oh, look at this table. Oh, there's no ball pythons. All right, I'm just gonna keep. It kind of is that, like, it's tough to explain. You feel what I'm saying, Josh? It's like,
it's like self-perpetuating thing, and
like,
people get a feel for that. So I see it, because I'm watching the crowd.
Cram it down your throat, bro, and it's just like,
and you'll get people, they walk by and all they do is glance at the table, and if they see a crested gecko or a ball python or a leopard gecko, they don't look any further. They'll look and go, oh, crested gecko, and they'll keep walking. It's like, well, we have one section is crested geckos, but you need to look at, like, I had someone sent me a message after the last Sacramento show and said, oh, I didn't see the diversity, it was mostly crested geckos. I didn't see the diversity of animals that you have listed. And I'm like, well, I don't think you were at my booth then, because you just did that glancing walk by, you saw one table full of crested geckos, but the table next to it has 25 species on it, so people get that, like, tunnel vision at the shows, and especially at the big shows. I see that where they don't really fully look at your booth. Like when I'm going to a reptile show, I'm going down each aisle meticulously. I'm checking out every table. I want to see everything that's on every table, and people just don't do that. They glance over, they see a crested gecko, and they don't look any further, or they see a ball python, they don't look any further. And it's like, you gotta, especially with our booths, is like, we each have a table of geckos, and I have maybe one display of ball pythons, but that makes up 40%, 30% of what we have on the tables in total. So people have kind of learned, like, it's a double-edged sword. People have kind of been conditioned to go, oh shit, ball pythons just keep walking, unless they're into it. And so people have really stopped examining tables because most tables
Yeah.
are that way. They have one type of stuff and that's it. Most tables aren't
Yeah.
diverse, so you can see why people have
Yeah.
been groomed and traditioned that way, you know. But don't, when it comes to our table, you got to look a little deeper.
Yeah. For sure. For sure, man, and just the logistics, bro. The logistics, like, of going to these shows like Utah. Like, how long does it take to get there? How do you take all your animals? Like, do you stay at a hotel?
Yeah, you get a procedure down, and it's been fine tuned. But yeah, we stay at hotels. What I typically, I try to do all the drive in one shot. I don't pack up my animals until the morning we're leaving. Like, we're leaving Friday morning at 3. I'll get up at 1 and pack my animals for. I don't pack them Thursday night. Even local shows, I go and set up on Friday. I set up my tables, my displays, my backdrop, all the lighting, everything. I don't even bring the animals. I don't bring any animals on Friday. I bring my animals. I pack. I don't, in like Pomona, I'll get up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I'll pack my animals up Saturday morning. They all got crickets Friday, you know. So I make sure there's, you know, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. You know, I hear people say, well, if you do one show or 2 shows here and there, like, oh, I don't feed my ball pythons a week before a show so they don't shit in the displays. You know, that's, you know, if you're doing a show here and there, that's okay. But no, I feed all my animals heavy right up before the shows, and especially water them. On Fridays when we're out of town, we drive to Utah. It's 10 hours. I'll leave, 4 or 5 in the morning, Friday morning, whatever. But I'll pack my animals up that morning, and I'll go straight to the hotel. I put my animals in the hotel. Then I go to the venue, set up all my stuff at the venue, and then come back to the hotel. And then I'm a fisherman. I wake up, like, no matter what.
Yeah. That's what I was
Sleeping
gonna
in to
say.
me
You
is
got that
5 a.m.
fisherman. You got that
Yeah,
fisherman
I'm up at
schedule.
3 or 4 every
Yeah.
morning, anyways. First show, and 5 on a bad day. So I'll get up in the morning at the hotel because we can't get into the venue for setup on Saturday morning until like 7:30, whatever it is. So I'll go through all my animals in the hotel, change their bedding, I give them all a misting, spray them at the hotel before, and then take them to the show Saturday morning so they're ready to set out, and I can just put them out on the table Saturday morning, and then and then Sunday morning, and then Saturday after the show, I do the same thing. I put them in big yellow bins, I take my animals back to the hotel on Saturday night, and I do the same thing Sunday morning, change their bedding, spray them, and then just reset them back out Sunday morning. And then we typically will drive home, or at least halfway home, that Sunday night. Unless it's a real far one, then we'll stay Sunday night and come home Monday morning. And I have a Chevy Avalanche, and so you can fold down the between the bed of the truck and the cab. You can fold that wall down. So if it's usually just me and my daughter in the front seat, and I can fold down the back seats and put all the animals in the back seats. But lately, since we're doing islands, I have more than that, so I can fold down that wall that separates the cab and the bed's enclosed, so I can temperature regulate the whole inside of my truck.
Hmm.
Um, the whole, even the bed. So I can fit all the animals inside my truck, and then I tow a trailer with all the crap in it, the cages, the enclosures, the lighting, the
Oh, okay.
banner.
You got a trailer? You
Yeah,
got a
well, I
trailer?
rent a
Yeah.
U-Haul. I'm actually, now that we're going ham on this, I'm going to be picking up a trailer here pretty soon. But I just rent one from the U-Haul right here. It's like $18 a day for a little trailer. Um,
Wow.
so I
Okay.
just rent those for the shows. Yeah, I just rent one right
Oh,
now.
awesome, man. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just so that way everything that isn't alive goes in the trailer, and then everything that's alive goes in my truck, in the cab of my truck, or you know, um, if it overflows
Okay.
into the bed, it's fine. That
Awesome,
way I
bro.
can temperature control everything all the way there and back, from the shows.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
Heck yeah, bro.
Yeah, it's a process that we've fine tuned over the years, but I don't lose any animals doing this.
Man, that
They
was
all
a great conversation, Josh. I pretty much covered all the topics, dude. We hit a couple subjects: Ackie monitors, diversity, vending shows. Um, you know, you really did a great job of explaining everything, bro. Would love to have you back on the podcast, man, on the West Coast. And is there anything you'd like to say, bro? Anything you want to promote, or any shout outs or any tips? I mean, you like I was gonna ask you about tips, but man, you've given me tips on everything, bro. So, dude, really, really appreciate you, man. Really appreciate your knowledge and your openness to share information, your transparency, dude. You're a really cool guy, man. And good to meet you a little more.
Hey, I really appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, I'm kind of an old school guy, just kind of been doing things in my bubble, but I'm working on getting my, more stuff up on Instagram and promoting all these shows we're doing. If you watch my Instagram, I usually the week leading up to a show, I'll let people know where we're at. I need to get better about posting a full schedule. But yeah, keep an eye out for us. We're pretty much doing every show west of Texas, right now, hitting them as much as we can, and we're really loving it, and we're bringing it all, and we're coming both guns blazing, man, with and I. So yeah, keep an eye out for us at your local shows. I really appreciate the opportunity to pop on here, and I love talking reptiles, man. Reptiles and fishing. I'm kind of an introvert, but reptiles and fishing, I'll talk all day.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell you love it, man. You're passionate. Those are two passions I share as well. We have a lot in common, man. And I'll go ahead and throw you backstage, bro. I'll run the outro and we'll catch up with everyone. Everyone, please leave a comment. Let us know if you learned anything on this episode. Really appreciate it, Josh. Thank you. Everyone, thank you. Have a good night from the West Coast. Your boy Adrian and Josh signing out. Stay tuned for episode 6 coming up soon. Goodbye for now. West Coast, man, you know where it's at. Best place to relax and kick back. Underneath the palm trees, talk about reptiles and spit facts. From BP to GTP, emeralds to Ackies, the city by the sea where we rock the crease khakis. I don't need no AI intro because I've been at the style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles. Reptiles. Talk about reptiles. Style. Come kick it on the West Coast and talk about reptiles.